So if you look at today's local government engineer, often the consultants, or even as a city engineer, they're tackling all of these tasks here with their resources and with their company. QCI, being a specialist, we focus on construction inspection, contract administration, construction management, and most recently, we've developed a public relations group that deals with project communications, addressing the residents, working with the contractor, and working with the community so that everybody's informed and aware of where the progress stands and the progress that's occurring on the job. So I thought I would just show you this and give you that graphic so you can see the difference between the traditional engineering company and a company like QCI. Next slide is clients. QCI's clients are local cities, villages, and townships, professional engineering firms, the Ohio Department of Transportation, the Ohio Turnpike, the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority, Cleveland Metro Parks, the Port Authority, and the private sector. Private sector, we were involved with Crocker Park and also involved with Legacy. Contracting methods for QCI. QCI can work through your city engineer consultant. I'm aware that GPD is here. We've got a good working relationship with GPD. There are communities where we work hand in hand. We have our own contract, and the community also uses GPD. We work with other engineering consultants, for example, City of Lyndhurst, where City of Lyndhurst uses an engineering company. That engineering company uses us for their construction inspection. So we can work directly with the engineering consultant. We have annual service agreements with local cities, villages, and townships. They're an on-call agreement. It doesn't lock you into a certain commitment or certain level of work. We're just sending you our terms and conditions, and we're sending you our shelf rates for various levels of construction inspection technicians, engineers, and contract administrators. And then also we have some document control people if needed. And a lot of that is based on the complexity of the work. Project-specific construction management and inspection contracts. We do provide a number of project-specific services. We just completed Route 82. GPD was the designer on that. It ended up being a $12 million LPA project. Funding came through the state and federal highway. GPD served as the design project engineer. We were hired as the construction project engineer to do that one-time project in Broadview Heights. We've also worked in Broadview Heights on other projects as well, but we are capable of being hired for a project-specific assignment. Local public agency, public work contracts. We've performed over 120 state LPA projects. Again, a state LPA project are projects that the state provides funding to the locals. They allow the locals to take control, and then the locals have to build the projects to the federal highway standards and state standards, and they have to execute the delivery of professional services, the design engineer and the construction engineer, to the standards of the state. In our firm, across the state of Ohio, has completed 120 of them. We've passed every state audit, and we've delivered the funding that was required for the project. Types of project QCI has worked on: annual concrete and asphalt maintenance programs, capital improvement and infrastructure projects. We have worked on roadways, water distribution system, bridges, trail and park projects, cable and fiber, buildings, and recreational facilities. We also provide road opening services. As an example, when AT&T came up Mayfield Road, we provided the inspector to oversee the AT&T work once it hit Lyndhurst from border to border. So we had an inspector on site with Lyndhurst looking over the contractor's work for AT&T. So we are capable of providing right-of-way inspections for those type of services. QCI's approach to the work. Our approach really is to be active. We provide active contract administration and active inspection. Obviously, we're in the people business. We have, over 100 field staff, and when you manage people, people have bad days. We understand that, but our method and our approach to the work is to make sure our people are visible, they're personable, and that they're interacting with the residents. And then we provide a layer of supervision and contract administration with required site visits to support that staff so they're not a person working on an island. It's been a successful formula for us. We've worked in, I think today we work in about 47 towns, and we have a number of contract administrators and construction engineers who are constantly visiting sites and supporting our field staff, working with the contractor residents and the engineers that we're working with that are for the community. Staff works as an extension of the community and the engineer, and the assigned contract administrator on-site inspection staff is tailored to the needs of the job. Not every job requires a big gorilla of project management. Some projects are less complex. Some of the contractors are, reasonable to work with. We're doing Shaker Boulevard right now with Fetchco. It's a challenging job. It's a complex job. Traffic maintenance is very difficult, and it's working in an old part of the community of Pepper Pike. Therefore, our contract administrator is probably on that project every other day, if not every day, and he's assisting the inspection team trying to resolve interferences and utility conflicts that arise. We do have the capability and staffing to adjust to fit the project needs of those particular projects. One of our biggest tools is real-time reporting. QCI uses an electronic reporting system. Every one of our employees who provide construction services are equipped with an iPad. They have access to our reporting system. You can log in while you're on vacation, if you like to. You can look at the project in real time. You can see the construction inspector's report. You could see the work progress. You could check the quantities. It tells us, percentages of item complete, and it allows us to be active in the project and managing the work as it's occurring. When we run into a design problem, when we run into an unknown condition problem, we're able to interact with the designer. We can give them percentages of item complete where they're at. We can discuss dollars in progress to help make good decisions based on project costs and where we are within the project. As you can see by the example, and I also gave you a copy of a construction report. The reports are all typed out. They're legible, and we're able to attach job photos to the report, so you're able to access this information and look at the work as it's occurring. In addition to this, we provide our clients with a read-only access. They're not able to change the data, but they can log in from their desk and they can work from the same material that we're working from. And in the world of public works and money management, this provides full transparency to the community and to the client. Continuing on with project approach, project outreach, communications, and public safety. About 10 years ago, we had the experience of working for the city of Greene, and the mayor there was very active in project communications. It was at that time we decided to put somebody in charge of project communications, and we've been very aggressive in this ever since. We always thought we were pretty good at it, but as we got into this, we decided that we needed a dedicated person. That dedicated person creates various types of reports. I provided in that packet a couple samples. The first sample I'm going to provide just deals with a general on-call. So with our on-call work, where we have more than one project going on, this is just a high-level synopsis of what's going on the project. And this gets distributed to the administration. Often the administration releases it to council. The public works director has it, the engineer has it, so everybody's working from the same information. The next one, and this is a live project that we're doing in the city of Lakewood. This report is published bi-weekly. This is a project-specific report, has a little bit more detail, but the project's a little more complex. So for that community, we're releasing this. Again, this makes it, through the same circulation. Often the cities will post this on their website, and then the public are provided that access as well. Advantages of QCI: specialization in local work for 37 years, responsive team to meet your needs, familiarity with infrastructure improvements, real-time documentation, proven reporting, and a commitment to effective communications. That's an overview on us, and I'm ready for any kind of questions or comments.
Thank you.
I think my last comment will be, I'm glad I stopped biting my nails 2 weeks ago. I noticed on the screen, they look much better.
Oh, good. All right. Does any member of council have any questions for Mr. Capone?
You go first?
Sure. Mr. DeJohn. Is this mine?
Thank you, Mr. Capone, for coming. I appreciate that. I guess my question is do a lot of other cities use you that already have engineering people on their staff and use both of you in conjunction?
Yes. Are you talking, when you say staff, are you talking staff in-house?
Well,
or are they using outside
contracted
consultants?
with an engineering firm.
Yes. We hold contracts with the city of Maple Heights. The city of Maple Heights has a contract with Chagrin Valley Engineering and has a contract with us. We hold a contract with the city of Brunswick. City of Brunswick has a contract with Chagrin Valley Engineering, has a contract with us. Village of Richfield has a contract with GPD, has a contract with us. We just started working with GPD and Euclid. Their Euclid will have a contract with us, and they also have a contract with GPD. There's other communities, that's just a small sample size, but that's not uncommon.
And just one more question. So if you looked at the scope of the work that should be done, and when you're inspecting, you don't see it being done, so you come back to the city to let us know? And also, can you look at a contract or scope of the work, I should say, and you see something that wasn't included? You come back to us and tell us you may want to consider this, or at least have us talk through it with our engineer.
Sure, I'll answer that in two parts. One, it's our responsibility to go through the contract documents, which include the plans and specifications in most cases, become familiar with them, and then enforce that on the performance of the contractor. So one, we want to get compliance as the contractor's building to make sure that he's building what he bid. And if he's not building what he committed to build, then we would notify the engineer, and we would also notify the city at the same time. So the city is kept in full communications with our work. The next part of the question, I would say, is there's no perfect plan. I've been doing this for 37 years. You know, I've yet to come across the perfect design, the perfect plan. So changes happen. Executing the changes and the reason for the change sometimes becomes muddy, and, you know, what's the cause? But we have a direct line of communication with the engineers, and we have a direct line of communication with the communities. I would say, depending on the structure that's set up, when we work, I'll give you an LPA example, and the LPA follows the Federal Highway and the ODOT standard. And I'll use GPD as an example because they were the design engineer of the Route 82 project. We don't have the authority to change the job. We assume the engineer and responsible charge position. We're going to sign off on the job saying it was built per the standards of the job and to any of the changes. But if we encounter something that requires a change, we're going to submit it as an RFI to GPD, and the city's going to be copied on that. GPD is going to respond, and then if a change order is necessary, we'll execute a change order. Or if it's just a change, a no-cost change, we'll execute that. It'll go into the file, and there's a full record of the document changes and what occurs on the project.
Thank you.
And so, just explain that the engineering company, the inspection portion of their contract, there wouldn't be, like, we would be paying you that inspection fee, correct?
Correct.
Right.
Typically, in most all cases, you're not going to pay two fees for an inspection. There might be some overlap, but usually it's minimal, if at all.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Balestrea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Capone, just to dovetail kind of on that question, that was a question I was going to ask. Have you run into situations where, you know, they might have an inspector on site and conflicts with what you would say, the city's requiring this hasn't been done, and he says, well, this is, to our knowledge, we've met the contract, and things like that happen. How do you rectify something like that if that situation, I'm sure it does persist?
I'm laughing because we have it less with inspection, and it usually becomes more of an issue if it becomes an issue at the engineering or architectural level. Typically, one entity is going to do the inspection, whether it's our firm or a different engineering firm. There's no really point to overlapping it. Sometimes where we'll have differences is either the fix or the acceptance of the work. And, you know, we're all professional firms. We do our best to try to resolve those differences. The latest example I can tell you is we were doing a library in a community outside of Philadelphia, and they poured a deck, and the concrete was hot. We told the contractor at the time not to put it down. They put it down. It was pitted. We rejected it. We brought it up to the architect. The architect looked at it and hemmed and hawed and said, you know, we think it's okay. We knew it wasn't okay. So we had to take it to the next level, and we brought the owner in. And we dragged the public works director out, and we said, the architect wants to accept this. We don't believe it's acceptable for these reasons. And then the owner rejected it, telling the architect, we don't accept it. And it got ripped out and replaced. I mean, sometimes you do need that mediator to come in and resolve those differences.
I was just kind of curious because I'm sure those types of things happen when an engineer does a job and finishes, you come in and inspect it, and then you say it's not up to specs, and there's going to be some controversy. And we're not engineers, so that puts us in a precarious situation. you know, to add more to a job, to, you know, who to believe, something like that?
Well, the one example I gave you for Lakewood, it's got a different designer on it. Lakewood, in this particular case, has an in-house engineer that is an employee of theirs. But typically, if we run into a problem, we're going to work it out as far as we can with the designer to resolve those differences. And again, if we can't resolve those differences, we're going to open up the communications to include the owner. So the owner can determine, you know, what their course of action is, and how far they choose to pursue it.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
Madam Chair, if I could. Oh,
No, go ahead.
Mayor?
Thank you. So Rick, I wanted to just clarify, we know that, you know, you would do the inspection portion of what GPD is doing now if we brought you on. So would that, if you were inspecting a road or a project, you are inspecting to make sure that it is built to what the engineer is calling for. You do not add any work to that, correct? So say you're doing a road and, you know, you think it says 20 aprons need to be replaced. While you're inspecting that work that is being done, would you catch if other aprons needed to be done? And would you add that? I mean, would you suggest adding that, or is that not really the scope of what an inspector would be doing?
Well, typically, you know, we would want to get the job built per the requirements. There are occasions where outside of the limits of the job, what we're building may cause a problem or may exacerbate a problem further. So the Olmsted Falls project we did, we put a new curb, it was a concrete curb with curb drops. And sometimes in older communities, when you get these curb drops, they settle. And you put a new curb in with a form, that form's straight, everything's plumb level. And the driveway is now 2 inches below the backside of the curb drop. So in that particular case, I would expect my inspector to call our contract administrator, send us a picture. We would get on the phone with the engineer and say, hey, we've got a problem. We think we're going to create a bigger problem than what's already there. Now, that's really outside the scope of the project, but we should be looking beyond that scope of the project to see, you know, if the work is going to cause a problem. We want to try to catch that.
Right, absolutely. Yeah.
Good, thank you. Mr. Monaco?
Thank you. Mr. Capone, it seems to me that this is, my colleagues brought this up because we seem to have problems with the current city engineer. Now, I don't know how many projects would you be involved with, whether it's road work, but we are already paying GPD for designing, inspecting, and for you know, bringing all this construction to a very acceptable result. In my opinion, we need one or the other. I don't think we need two people, two companies that oversee the same operation. Again, if my colleagues are not happy with GPD, I think we need to go in a different direction. But even two, again, I don't know which project would you be involved in the city of Mayfield Heights. Can you briefly tell me?
I can't tell you. I'm not in a position to tell you. I could just tell you that in the medical field, we often have more than one doctor. That your general doctor doesn't operate on your knee. So if you think of the engineering field in the same light, the diagram that I provided you that showed the pie with all the different services, there's a lot of engineering firms who provide all of those services, who do very similar things of GPD. And I've worked with GPD, and I know a lot of people at their firm. They're a very good, reputable firm. I'd like to believe that our firm as a specialist, you know, provides a little bit more attention to detail, provides a little bit more service, because 100% of our resources are dedicated to that type of work.
Hey, Mrs. Tressi.
So, thank you, Council President. So I just want to kind of piggyback on what the mayor asked. If we did a development and in the scope of GPD's work, they said 20 aprons, but as your inspector walked through that development and saw the progress or lack of progress in repairing 2 other aprons that you feel should have been included, do you go back to GPD and offer your expertise and say, you know, these additional aprons are damaged and because of the road work we're doing and we should, repair or replace? Do you do that? Do you step up to the plate or go to GPD or come back to the city? I mean,
No, very often, our first line would be to contact GPD. And again, the city would be copied on any of the communications. It would be to notify GPD that we're on site, we're building this project, it calls for 20 aprons, and we've noticed 2 other aprons that are of equal or similar condition. Do you want to do these other aprons?
and so it would be up to GPD to come back to the city or you to come back to the mayor and say, this is what we found.
Yes.
We would either say, yes, let's do the additional aprons, or no, leave it with the scope of work that GPD has in front of them.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. Just one last question for you, Mr. Capone. The reason I sought you out is because we had several streets done in one part of our city, and they were ripping out the drain tile along the curbs because they were replacing the curbs, and they did not put drain tile back in, they just put gravel. So obviously, I couldn't go into the contract to look to see if that was specified, that drain tile was specified to be replaced back or should have been replaced back. I was just told by the GPD engineer that it was at his discretion whether they should put it back or not. And that was unacceptable for me. So is that something I then could have gone to you and say, hey, can you look at this contract? Was it in there? And also, why should they have put that drain tile back in there?
I mean, I would say this, that we're certainly capable of giving it a peer review. In the hierarchy of executing and delivering a project, one person is going to serve in responsible charge. I would tell you, you're wasting your money if you're paying us and you're paying GPD to both be engineers in responsible charge. You have to have one person that says, this is the way it's going to be on the project. However, as the owner, you should be kept informed. And by having our involvement on the project, we would keep you informed of all of the changes, all of the change conditions. If there's a concern like you just raised, the city would be part of that communication. You would be brought in to those discussions. I'm not familiar with the project or the reason why drain tile wasn't used and they used all aggregate. So I can't really tell you if it was right or
Sure,
wrong.
I don't expect you to, but, I just had no place to go to find out if this engineer was telling me the truth or not.
Okay.
Yeah, the first place we would go to are the contract documents, the details and the plans. Sometimes on road projects, you don't get design, depending on the scope of the work. Sometimes it's just quantity and specifications.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Oh, Mr.
Just to
Monaco.
answer Mr. DeJohn's question, in most cases, an existing drain tile may not be on a drawing. However, if the drain tile is there and you are redoing the road, the drain tile should be replaced as existing. You just don't remove the drain tiles, not replace it. So in that case, in my opinion, I think the engineer was at fault for not replacing it. So I don't think there's anything that, his company can do other than say, it was here, it needs to be replaced, and maybe come to the mayor, come to the city and said, this wasn't done, it should be done. Let's look into it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Capone, for all your information, the presentation this evening.
Sure.
Was very informative.
Well,
We'll
again, thank you
discuss
for
it
having
amongst
me.
council.
I've included my business card, my cell number's on there, office number's on there. You're welcome to call with any questions. And I hope I was able to give you some information about how the engineering community is working today. And thank you.
You did.
Thank you.
Did you leave 2 copies
Yeah,
for
I'm
the
gonna-
members of council that aren't here this evening?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move.
Moved by Mr. DeJohn,
Second.
second by Mrs. Teresi. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you, this meeting has now been adjourned. We'll have a 5-minute break.
Absolutely.
While I stand back there, can you tap on this so I can sense?
See if you hear it? Yeah. They came in lower.
But it shouldn't be us.
I did well this time. Wow. You proud of me? If anyone would like to be heard this evening, and if you haven't filled out a paper, please do so, or bring it up to me, please. Thank you. Good evening. I would like to welcome everyone to the May 8th council meeting of the City of Mayfield Heights. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Balestria.
Present.
Mr. DeJohn.
Here.
Mr. Mano. Mr. Monaco.
Here.
Mrs. Sabetta. Mrs. Snyder.
Here.
Mrs. Teresi.
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next is the approval of the minutes from the April 24th council meeting. I hope everyone's had time to read these minutes over. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Moved by Mr. Balestria
Second?
and second by Mrs. Tressi. Are there any changes, amendments, or deletions to those minutes? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? These minutes have been approved as written. Does any member of council have any correspondence or announcements this evening? I do. So I had the opportunity to go out on Saturday for the cleanup of Mayfield Heights Day. I just want to thank everyone that helped out. The day, the weather was beautiful, and I think we collected a lot of garbage off of our streets. We will be hosting these in the fall and spring of each year. I encourage people to come out and volunteer. It feels good to beautify our city. Also, during the mayor's report this evening, he will swear in our newest member to the police department, Maverick, our new K-9 officer. Today I received an email from resident Mrs. Deborah Kramer. She is unable to attend tonight's meeting, and she would like to see if we have made any progress with the solar panels and any thoughts on the approach that Mr. Kramer brought up at the last meeting. Mrs. Kramer states that she is not going to give up hope yet. So, and that's my report. Any questions? Okay. Next, we will move to reports of officers, starting with the mayor.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to keep this short because we're running late and we have a very important swearing in to do during this report. So this past Friday, we celebrated Arbor Day and we planted a tree in Oakville. We are a member of Tree City USA for over 6 years now. And we want to thank our service department for their care and hard work maintaining the trees, which in turn beautifies our city. Shred Day is this Saturday, May 13th, between 9 and noon at the city pool parking lot off Chelmsford. Reminder for everyone. And again, if anyone is having, I mentioned this in my last report, any questions or issues that have resulted from NOPEC enrollment, you can call 855-667-3201, that's NOPEC's number, or go to their website, nopec.org. They'll be happy to answer any questions you have tonight. Not tonight, in general, whenever you have those questions. So I want to move over to the podium and so we can swear in Maverick.
He heard his name. Aw. He's so cute. It is.
All right, Mike. Congrats. Thank you. Okay. I think you're going to have to speak for Maverick. Okay. Understood. All right. I, K-9 Maverick,
I, K-9 Maverick,
swear to faithfully and impartially
swear to faithfully and impartially
discharge my duties
discharge my duties
as a police K-9 officer
as a police K-9 officer
of the city of Mayfield Heights.
of the city of Mayfield Heights.
I will support the Constitution of the United States,
I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the laws of the state of Ohio,
the laws of the state of Ohio,
and the Charter and ordinances of the City of Mayfield Heights.
and the Charter and ordinances of the City of Mayfield Heights.
I will bear true faith,
I will bear true faith,
loyalty, and allegiance
loyalty, and allegiance
to the same.
to the same.
I further swear and affirm
Further swear and affirm
that I will protect and serve
that I will protect and serve
the citizens of Mayfield Heights,
the citizens of Mayfield Heights.
assist my handler
This is my handler
in enforcing the law,
in enforcing the law,
finding illegal drugs,
finding illegal drugs,
tracking suspects,
tracking suspects,
and being a goodwill ambassador
and being a goodwill ambassador
for the Mayfield Heights Police Department.
for the Mayfield Heights Police Department.
I understand the badge I wear
I understand the badge I wear
symbolizes public faith
symbolizes public faith
and trust,
and trust,
charging me to perform my duties
charging me to perform my duties
impartially.
impartially.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
He's so cute.
I'll shut that off. We also have a presentation from Rotary, if you'd like to come up. Alan Semethy and Jackie Minotis. If you want to, come on over here, Jackie.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to come over to the front? So that, or make sure they're on camera, that's all.
Sorry. My name's Alan Semethy. I'm the Vice President of the Hillcrest Sunrise Rotary, and this is Jackie Minotis, our president, and should be doing this for 2 years. But we have a check to donate to the Mayfield Heights Police Department for $5,000 towards the training and the build-out of the police cruiser so that Maverick can help the community and the police department and this fine officer, King. So if we can present that to Donovan.
Yeah, we'd just like to thank the Hillcrest Sunrise Rotary. There's a lot of equipment that's needed for the canine. Obviously, the temperature in the car has to be regulated all the time. So we're able to buy a lot of the equipment thanks to them, which is going to definitely help with the program and save the city money from having to purchase those items. So thank you very much.
Our pleasure.
And in addition, there'll be a $1,000 sustainable donation from the Rotary to help with the vet bills and the food cost of Maverick. So we really wanted to help tremendously.
Thank you so much.
When's he get his badge, Mayor? Does he get a badge?
He's so cute. Isn't he cute? He's sniffing the mayor. Aw,
You didn't take a poop during this presentation, that's a good thing.
that is awesome.
Exactly right.
And that concludes my report.
That was a
Wow,
good
that
report.
is awesome report.
That was a good one.
Awesome report, Mayor. Thank you to the Hillcrest Rotary and also welcome Maverick. That's exciting. I do have one quick question for you, though. Is there a way that we can dedicate the tree to Mr. Newman in Oakville Park?
To Mr. Who?
Newman.
Oh, Mr. Newman.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Sure,
We had talked about
Yeah.
it a few years ago,
Yep.
so that would be perfect.
we'll get on that.
Okay, thank you. All right, Law Director, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a couple of items to note. First of all, at the last meeting, Mr. DeJohn had questioned the sign at Golden Gate regarding, or Eastgate, I'm sorry, regarding juicy seafood and whether or not it was grandfathered. I did a memo, did the research, and indicated it was not grandfathered. And I did do a little more research, and there is a provision in the codified ordinances. I just wanted to elaborate that. It's titled Discontinuance of Use of Nonconforming Signs. A nonconforming sign, the use of which is discontinued for 30 days, shall therefore conform to this chapter. So once the Fox and Hound closed, 30 days, that sign was not used any longer once it came down, so it's not grandfathered. But the sign that is requested would have been permitted under the prior ordinances. That sign would have been permitted to be 200 square feet, but in 2017, the ordinances were changed to make it a maximum of 100 square feet. So therefore, that's why the variance is necessary. But I wanted to clear that up. Secondly, resolution number 2023-26 is currently on table, and that is confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals in granting the shed variance. As council knows, since that variance was recommended to be granted, the ordinances have been changed so that that variance is no longer necessary. However, the codified ordinances provide that if action is not taken within 60 days, then the ordinance is considered to be adopted. And that 60 days will be May 13th. Mrs. Sabetta, as the sponsor, was going to withdraw that resolution, but she's not here this evening, so I would recommend that that be removed from table and defeated because the variance is no longer necessary. I think the shed's already been built, so we don't need that. And finally, there was a memo from Sean Ward requesting that resolution number 2023-46 be added to the agenda. That's been disseminated to all members of council, and if council is of a mind, that can be added to the agenda and voted on this evening at the end of the resolutions. And that's all. Questions?
Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. I gave Mr. Murphy a sample draft, and remember, this is a sample draft, and he will write it to conform to our ordinances. And it's titled Naming Rights to Government Buildings and Property. So I've come up with this ordinance because we have nothing addressed in our codifieds about naming anything in the city, and I've seen prior administrations, such as Mayor Egensberger put a sign on the new city hall without council's prior approval. I saw Mr. Costabile put up a monument with a flag and his name on there without council approval, so I thought we needed something like this for anything like that to come through council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeJohn. Is there any other further questions or comments for the law director? Okay, we'll move to Director of Finance, Mrs. Fagan.
I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to the Building Committee with Mr. Monaco as the chair.
Thank you, Madam President. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Finance and Audit Committee, Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. I have no report.
Legislative Committee, Mrs. Sabetta, she's absent this evening, so Mr. DeJohn, do you have a report?
No, I'm sorry, we don't have a report this evening.
Thank you. Public Works and Service, Mr. Balestreo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No committee meeting report, but we do have two resolutions on the agenda tonight that do relate to the 2023 road program, and we can discuss them as they come up.
Okay, thank you. Recreation and Parks Committee is Mr. Mano as the chair, and I am the co-chair, so I will give the report this evening since he is absent. The Recreation Department is looking for lifeguards for our new aquatic center. Applicants must be at least 15 years old. Interested applicants will be trained. Please call the Recreation Department for more information. Also, we are looking for someone to run a concession stand at the new aquatic center. If you're interested, please contact the Recreation Director at 440-442-2627. Heart Saver AED will be held in the Fire Department on May 10th from 6 to 8:45 p.m. Registration in advance is required. The fee is $20. This class is for teachers, coaches, fitness professionals, babysitters, scout leaders, and so on. Also, Teen Camp is still taking registration in Session 2, July 3rd to July 21st, for this adventure-filled camp. More information can be found on our website, or you can call for the details. And finally, Memorial Day Remembrance will take place in our parking lot at the police station off Chelmsford at 10 a.m. on May 29th. And our speaker this year will be Tim Coffey. And that's it. Does anybody have any comments or questions? All right, thank you. We will move to Safety and Transportation. Mrs. Tressi.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Our committee has not met, so I have no report this evening.
Thank you. And Board of Zoning Appeals, Mrs. Sabetta, and she is not here this evening, so I will tell everyone there's one BZA item on the agenda for this evening, and there's no other further report. Okay. And Planning Commission, Mr. Valstria.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Planning Commission did not have an agenda, so I have no report this week.
Thank you. Is there a meeting for next week scheduled? Or another planning? Not yet, okay. All right, we will now move to comments from the public. Pursuant to our city code, each person will be allotted 5 minutes to speak, with a maximum of 30 minutes allotted for the entire public portion. If you are here in connection with an agenda item, this is your opportunity to address council. However, please note that this is not an opportunity for debate or slighted comments. If you would like to be heard this evening, please fill out the form located on the table at the back of the public entrance of the chamber. During the public portion, I will call each person wishing to speak to the podium. Please state your name and address and speak clearly into the microphone. It is now 7:40. I will open up the public portion. First, I will call Mr. Eisenberg. That's okay.
We haven't started it yet.
We won't start. Thank you, Sean.
Do that, okay.
Okay, for the minutes, my name is Rick Eisenberg. I reside at 450 Creekside, which is the farthest west you can go in Mayfield Heights. I would observe that, yes, well, Council President and Council, let me properly address you.
Thank you.
That this past weekend was the Fallen Fighter Fighters Memorial Weekend. So hopefully what I have to say tonight will be somewhat appropriate. The backstory has raised my concerns, and I'm just going to raise concerns. I don't have answers. I meet with a group of fellows. We meet like once a month for breakfast and solve most of the problems of the world. We even have a Shakespeare scholar with us. And the discussion came up at a particular time regarding the federal government's bent to force us all into electric cars. And the sort of a frivolous conversation regarding things like we are in Lake County, so they're talking about Pine Ridge Apartments has 1,100 suites. What if a third of those people want to charge their car overnight? Where are they going to put all the chargers? How are they going to afford them? Or you can't have an AM radio in an EV. But one of our members is a retired EMT and turned it to a serious bent. He rode the wagon for years, and he was a trainer at one point, and he explained to us that these cars are all going to be carrying pounds of Chinese lithium. And Chinese lithium, any lithium for that matter, but most of it's coming from China, when it burns, it's about 1,200 degrees. It gives off toxic fumes. It can't be extinguished, or hardly be extinguished. From his experience, unless there's something new, the turnout gear that your typical first responders have will melt. The breathing apparatus, to the best of his knowledge, unless something very new has come along, won't handle those toxic fumes. So, and I did see an article trying to educate myself. Ford had some trucks in storage that caught fire. And they mentioned that when the EV battery goes with these massive flames, they can't be put out. If you put foam on it, but because they're so full of energy themselves, they don't need the oxygen. You can pour tons of water on them, you hope the surrounding, but eventually they just burn out. So I was worried about this because I have, hopefully, maybe you've had it in a committee. I have not heard anything or read anything that our council is addressing this. And I mentioned the Ford thing because this isn't a theoretical. This happened just a few weeks ago, and they were lucky they only lost 3 trucks. And as we're coerced, or the public is coerced into buying more and more of these cars, and they proliferate, and they'll be all over our streets, this isn't something that's going to happen on 271 when a truck hits one of these things. I could see an Eon running a light here in Mayfield, getting hit by a Tesla, and then the Volt that was traveling too close hits them. Now we have 3 battery packs burning on Mayfield. Our first responders, we expect them to go extinguish the fire. With what? What are they going to be wearing? How are they going to be breathing? If our police are there to direct traffic, how far away do they have to be before the fumes get to them or the heat gets to them? Now, I have to, maybe I'm naive. When I grow up, maybe I won't be so naive, but I have to assume, optimistically, that the same government that wants us to have all these cars and bring this tons of lithium, now stop and think. If we had 1,000 new electric cars in Mayfield Heights, they each had they're supposed to have between 5 and 20, let's say they each have 5. That's 5,000 pounds of lithium. 2.5 tons roaming around our streets, plus all those folks coming to shop at Costco in their electric cars. If our first responders were to go out there, what would they wear? What would they be trying to extinguish the fire with? How would they be breathing? So as I say, I'm hoping that there's some department or some agency in our federal government that's looking into these consequences of this great idea we all drive around in our electric cars. Now, I was pleasantly surprised at the reaction of our Ohio senators to the East Palestine disaster. They were both there almost immediately, and they've been there separately. They've cooperated on...
Mr. Eisenberg, I just have to get a member of council to have you go on to speak.
Okay.
Mrs. Tressi moves. Second, Mr. Balestro. Go ahead.
Okay, you got me just as I'm winding up.
That's okay, I'm sorry.
If we have a committee, we have someone, fire department, whatever, I would ask that we contact the offices of Senators Brown and Vance, because they say they've been working on legislation to remediate East Palestine, to prevent it from happening again. So apparently they do have some interest in this. If anything's being developed, I'm selfish. I'd like to see the first outfits, the first extinguisher, the first breathing apparatus, our fire department, our EMS, our police. And I would ask that, again, I would urge, I can't tell you to do anything, you're running the city, but I would urge that you somebody contact the offices to see what help we can get before. It's not theoretically, as I just mentioned, it's happening. They burst into flames in Florida, salt sprays set them off. So that's my concern. I'll leave the griping to other people. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our chief of fire is here this evening, so he was able to hear you, and we're listening as well. Thank you so much. Okay, Mrs. Lisa Weiner.
Thank you. Lisa Weiner, 7405 Rockwell Court, Mentor, Ohio, representing Juicy Seafood at Eastgate Shopping Center. And thank you again for hearing during the second hearing. I'm here again to ask that council would approve a size variance for Juicy Seafood. They are requesting to be 40 square feet over the 100 square foot maximum signage. The hardship would be that if we were required to downsize the sign, our sign would be disproportionately smaller than all of the adjacent signs next to it, making it a little less noticeable, potentially making it so that we would lose potential sales. If you don't approve and we have to remove the sign, we could go 8 to 12 weeks without signage on the building, which would be really hard for a newly opened business who just opened a few weeks ago.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Alan Lichten? I have Chad as well. Are you both going to come together?
He'll go after me, or no, let's go together. Yeah, you first. No, Dad, stay with me. Here.
Just both state your name and address for the record.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Okay. Hello, my name is Chad Lichten. I live at 6295 Fairhaven. And last week or 2 weeks ago, I spoke and I wore a necklace of LED lights, which I just grabbed from my basement. I figured it might make you think differently about light. I'm not wearing that necklace today because obviously nobody looked at me except Diane. I was really happy you were giving me your attention, but nobody else, no one was looking at me because it hurt. And we're in a bright room, and it wasn't even nearly as bright as the light that we are dealing with all night, every night. So I think you know what the point is about why I did that.
This particular one that we're talking about,
I've been out there several times in the evening, and the street light is brighter than...
the post light,
Again, you aren't an expert on light.
so that's probably causing
more
more.
of a problem than the post light across the street. So, yeah, it remains my opinion. I haven't seen anything that I think could be enforceable. Thank you.
That's, a commercial.
Where you have more control over a commercial area than you do a residential.
Especially if it's shining into a residential area, it becomes more of a nuisance. And there's always the nuisance ordinance under state law that if, a light is creating a nuisance, that person can always, follow the nuisance ordinance and file a lawsuit in that regard.
It can't be any more or less of a nuisance coming from commercial. Light is light. And to just say, file a lawsuit to anything you don't want to maybe protect people about, it's kind of an easy thing to say, but to that person suffering, it's quite a big deal. You need a lot of money. You need you got to get lucky with the judge. Anyway, you know how that goes. You're a law director.
But it's up to the building commissioner. If the city's light ordinance regarding commercial establishments is being violated, then the building commissioner does have authority to go and request that those lights be changed in the commercial area.
Mr. DeJohn.
So if you remember.
So I got this big packet in the mail from Murphy's Law Firm, from you personally, and it had a cover letter explaining how much you've tried to go over all these ordinances, and it was impressive, and it was thick. It had to be at least 50 pages. And I looked through it briefly, and there was actually an email in it. I'll get to that. how, you know, it had a lot of ordinances in it that they had researched, that you had researched, and how they could not apply to Mayfield, as if Mayfield's so, there's a lot of noise coming here, I can't think. What's going on? It's like a ruckus coming from there, I don't know. I really can't think. Thank you.
Where's it coming from, Mr. Lichten?
It was coming from the back room.
So buried in this packet was an email which you all received by Mark Baker of the Soft Lights Organization. Thank you. His email was the clearest example on how to write an enforceable ordinance that I've ever seen. It was brilliant, and it was clear, it was concise. I don't know why nobody, and this was June of 2022, why none of council shared this email with me. It would have helped my case out because it made so much sense. Now I'm in communication with Mark Baker, and he wants to help. It's funny, he said about you, Law Director Murphy, he said, why do people try so hard to make things not work? Anyway, I'm pretty much done with my end of it. You want to continue?
Thank you, Mr. Lichten.
Hello, I'm Alan Lichten. I also live at 6295 Fairhaven. I'm a doctor. I work down at the Cleveland Clinic. I take care of cancer patients and people with blood disorders. And I've really never...
Can you bring it a little closer to you?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I take care of hematology oncology patients. And in that packet was a note from Chief Mealy. And he said that light ordinances really don't work in places where people live so close to each other. It's better when people live far apart. I mean, I respect the police chief, but I would take exception to that in the sense that when people live close to each other, all illnesses tend to get higher. Anxiety, depression, health issues, sanitation issues, hygiene issues. And so to think that if light comes into your window from somebody who lives close to you is not something that should be paid attention to as if some light's coming from far away, I think that's not correct thinking. The other thing is that the light is not just bothering Chad, it's bothering me. It's bothering my wife. And I think one point was that council's not heard from a lot of people who have the same concern. I would think that as time goes on, hopefully people will have the same kind of anxiety or issue with light shining into their homes at night. The other thing is that this neighbor who we are dealing with is, we've spoken with him, we've asked him nicely to turn off his light, and he has taken a position not to follow what we are asking. And so the community ops got involved, and I would think if community ops was able to convince this person that what he's doing is bothering his neighbor, it would lead to a better resolution. The dog could not speak for himself tonight to be sworn in, but dogs are really sensitive to smell and light. And I would anticipate that if the dog could speak, he'd also say how much this light was bothering him, disorienting him as well. The packet that was sent to us, I thought, took a lot of effort, and that was great. But I share Chad's concern, like that memo from that soft light company, that Mark Baker. It would have been nice for us to have seen that back in July of 2022, because it would have helped us present our case to you as well. So we will be back. I also appreciated in the cover letter the idea that we can come as many times as we want. We're not being told not to come anymore. So we will be back, and we will, I think, convince you eventually to the utility of establishing an ordinance so that when a person is bothered or there's a nuisance, that the city can step in.
I want, can I
Thank
say
you.
one more
Thank
thing?
you. Thank you.
Did I get my 5 minutes?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
But last week, 50 full seconds were wasted talking about my necklace and telling me to turn it off. That was 50 seconds. I could have been explaining my case. Can I just say something? I could have said it by now. So this packet, and the meaning of it's kind of vague. It's kind of like, please stop coming here. You didn't say that, but it was kind of like, we've done it, we've tried, that's it, we don't want it. Now this Mark Baker explained with pictures that could be on the Mayfield website, explaining to residents, these are good lights, these are bad lights. And you can really plainly, clearly, easily, you don't need a scientist to fight this, to do this right. That's all. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lichten.
Sure.
Is there anybody else that would like to be heard this evening? Mr. Ward?
I'll try to be quick here. So first off, just wanted to follow up on Diane's comment in her report. We had on Saturday morning, we had a beautification day. We had two groups, approximately 20 volunteers go around the clover leaves, Marsall and Lander Road bridges, cleaning up trash. Wanted to thank the police auxiliaries who kept us safe and the service department who came around and picked up the bags of trash that were collected. We have a group led by Jeremy King who is going to adopt a spot on by the playground at Oakville Park, and they'll be planting flowers and being in charge of watering and weeding that spot. And we're going to see how that goes this year. So we're looking forward to the outcome of that. I wanted to read you Higley. The folks from Higley were not able to be here tonight, but I asked them to give some quick talking points. The project's schedule is critical at this time. Any revisions to scope/design will very likely impact our ability to maintain the schedule as currently shown. Weather appears to be turning in our favor after a wet spring, so proceeding with current design/plan work is critical to maintaining the schedule. Some upcoming construction items. The slide installation crew will be mobilizing on 5/19, starting with the tower and then progressing to the slide runouts. The pool deck will begin to be poured this week. That's exciting news. The air and the weather barrier is underway, and it will continue with good weather. And this will allow for the metal panels to be installed next. And then air handling units 3 and 4, which are above the community center and the gymnasium, are scheduled for startup on May 18th. And this will allow us to begin to condition the rooms so we can do some of the interior finishes. As for the schedule, the current schedule is showing the pools complete and ready for occupancy in early August, but we're hopeful that weather, material deliveries will allow us to bring that in much earlier. Communicating with our team that June 30th is still the target date for turnover. So they're being cautious, but we're still shooting for that 30th date. So that's their statement, and basically time is of the essence. So tonight we have the pavilion legislation and the pavers. There's a lot that needs to happen in a short amount of time. There are curbs being poured and getting done soon. So with regard to the pavers, if it's not something that gets decided tonight, it likely may not make this project just because guys are cleaning up and finishing projects, and so we need to make some decisions. The next council meeting, we will be looking for approval for a sidewalk. Mrs. Teresi mentioned that probably a month ago about the sidewalk on Marsall and the parking lot across the street, and so we'll have a proposal for you at the next meeting. Hopefully we can get that pushed through. Some good news, funding, we received $250,000 twice from the county for ARPA funds for this project. As you know, we also moved $300,000 from the community cost share over for the retention ponds underneath the parking lot. And just earlier, late last week, we were approved $150,000 for installation of the playground from the community block grant funds. So that's all in total, that's $950,000 of monies coming in to help this project. And that's all I have. Chris is here, obviously, to answer any questions about pavilions or pavers for the legislation.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, is there anybody else that would like to be heard this evening? Okay. It is now 8:05. I will close the public portion. We'll start with resolution number 2023-38. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2023-38, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to Wing Hay Juicy Seafood on behalf of Cosmo Eastgate Limited, 1479 Som Center Road, a variance to install 140 square feet of W1 signage on the front wall of the building. Cuyahoga County Permanent Parcel Number 862-29-018. Second reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Move.
Second.
Moved by Mr. DeJohn, second by Mr. Belstrea. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Belstrea, second by Mrs. Tressi. As discussed at the previous meeting, this was a 5-2 vote in favor of granting the variance to this restaurant. There was questions at the previous meeting as to whether this could be grandfathered in, and I think Mr. Murphy answered those questions this evening. Does any member of council have anything further? Mr. Belstrea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It came up, I think Mr. Mano commented at the last meeting that he was not happy with the fact that, the applicant did not seek a permit or seek out request for variance. And I would tend to agree that, that's not our normal procedure. But I will say that I did go over and look at the sign. It's the same size as what the previous owner, Fox and Hound, had there, and I would have approved it regardless. So I would just say that to express concern that applicants really need to make sure that they follow the procedures that the city has set forth. But I'll go ahead and approve the variance this evening.
Okay. Mrs. Tressi, or did you have something?
No.
Okay. Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. I also agree with Mr. Balestria that the sign doesn't look bad. It's the same sign as what was originally here with the Fox and Hound. I understand that they didn't get a variance. Shame on them for not. But I also think we should put something in our codes that there should be a hefty fine when somebody doesn't get a building permit. I think it should be at least $500 to $1,000. But I am going to vote for it also because I think that the sign is fine. Thank you.
Did you have something to say? Mr. Monaco, okay. So in all fairness to the applicant, we have two council people that are not here this evening. And I think that bringing up the point that you brought up, Mr. Balestria, I don't know how, we know how Mrs. Sabetta voted, but I don't know how Mr. Manna would see this. So in order to overturn the BZA, we need 5 members of council to be able to overturn it. And right now, it looks as though 2 of you are voting in favor with the BZA. So I think maybe we should put this on second reading. Okay.
I agree.
Make a motion. Or leave it up to the applicant. Would you like for a full council to be here to vote on this? So if you, yeah, so here's how it goes. We have, in order to overturn the BZA, we would need 5 votes. But there's only, there's not a full council here, there's 7. So if all 5 of us don't vote the same way, then it will be defeated. So it's giving the applicant the option. So. No. We'll just vote for it this evening. Okay, roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJohn,
Yes.
Mr. Monaco,
Nope.
Mrs. Teresi,
No?
Mr. Balestrea,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. So that's 3-2. So the variance is granted.
No, the
Is-
resolution is
yeah,
defeated.
Is defeated. That's what I meant to say, I'm sorry. Okay, moving to resolution number 2023-41, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just as a clarification, you need 4 votes to adopt something, adopt any resolution, and there was only 3 to adopt, so it was not passed.
Madam President,
Mr. DeJohn.
we had 5 people to vote tonight.
And only 3 voted to
Approve it.
in favor of the resolution, so the resolution didn't get the required 4 votes.
That's a first for me.
That's the problem with having only 5 members of council.
That's why I
You're missing
suggested.
2, yeah. But it can be brought up again.
Resolution
Resolution 2023-41, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with That's My Brick for the purchase of commemorative pavers for use at the Mayfield Heights Aquatic and Community Center and declaring an emergency. Second reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Monaco. Second by Mrs. Teresi. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn,
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mrs. Teresi, second by Mr. Monaco. We heard from Mr. Ward last meeting about the bricks. Unfortunately, there has not been a committee meeting to discuss the pavers. The cost can be changed, and we also talked about a different location, but that seems to be the proper location for these bricks. All members should have received a memo showing the cost that the school had for the pavers in 2012 and 2013. Would you like to speak about the bricks, Mr. Ward? Anything else? Are there any questions for Mr. Trotter or Mr. Ward? Mr. Belstrea.
Thank you. Thank you. I think, Mr. Ward, last week we had talked about the possibility of expanding that walkway and putting more pavers in the circular area, but I didn't see anything come forward during the last 2 weeks, if that was discussed or not.
Just give me 1 second. Let me pull up this.
No, take your time.
This view. Chris, if you want to.
Good evening. The original location where we studied it was sort of on the main pathway so that we get maximum visibility for patrons and, people enjoying the park to see it. So that's why we focused on that area. And it originally had, I think, the capability of 400 pavers or so. And then we expanded it a little wider to maximize it in that area. There are, if you zoom in on that, Sean, we just liked that location because it was more prominent. It was where the main walking path from the playground to the sidewalk to the parking lot. So that's why it was a desirable location. And then there's a little room on either side of that shaded area that you can see that we can do some additional to kind of complete that circle. And then the outer ring is left intact as just concrete sidewalk, and aesthetically, I think that would look good. So it's kind of like when you come into the inside the ring, you see this kind of display. And that was just the best location we thought and recommended.
I think the question wasn't the location. I think that was adequate. It was just adding more to that site, is if there was anything we could do at this, 11th hour to add more pavers there, if by reducing the price, we had more.
Yeah, the challenge is we need to have complete sidewalks for the opening of the project, right? We have to have sidewalks complete. We can't have a gap or something missing. And until you purchase it, get them engraved, install them, you're going to have missing pieces there. And from what I've witnessed, how long it takes to do things like that, it'll take time. And I don't know that you would have that all completed, all the money paid for, everything executed by the time that this facility opens. So, the recommendation is to maximize it where it's shown. If it's on the outer arc, it's a more it's a more severe sort of angle, so you're going to have a lot more wasted brick where you can't put pavers. This is more sort of regular. If you notice, it's more like rectangular, so you get more bricks. You won't get as many bricks around that perimeter area. At a later time, you certainly could cut the sidewalk and put more bricks in. But right now, I'm concerned that even that sidewalk will not be complete by the opening of the project.
Just to follow up, is there any reservation with, if you do get more than that? I understand keeping the beauty of what you have designed, but going beyond that circle?
I think you could continue, let's say, going
down the
out.
sidewalk on the
Yeah,
outside
that's
of
what I
it?
would recommend, because you want it to look, you don't want to have just patchwork of couple here, couple there. You want it to look like a complete thought, and then move on to the next section where you do it, instead of it being in kind of a sporadic. But I could see you extended it, keep following the sidewalk out a little bit. That would be a good idea. I like that.
So I do have a question. So you said that the walk on either side of the pavers and all the way around would be concrete?
Sidewalk.
It won't be asphalt, but right?
It's concrete, yeah.
Okay.
So if we got more, they'd have to tear it up.
That's a different sidewalk, okay. I had talked to Sean about another area, and I thought that was part of it.
And these pavers take a detailed sub-base and concrete base, and there's a lot of work to install these pavers. They're just not on earth, on sand. It's a whole structurally designed system, so that decision needs to be, that's why we're trying to push it now. And maybe what we can do is try to see, can we maximize, get a little bit more on each side like you suggested and see what we can do. But we have to move forward with that and structurally frame it so it can do that.
And what was the color of the brick? Is it matching what we have?
Gray was it was a gray color. It wasn't like a buff or some other, I thought it was gray was what I was.
It's close to the concrete.
Yeah.
All right.
There are 550 bricks, 550 bricks that can be engraved.
And is the cost in this as well? Change to the cost? I didn't look at that really quick here.
So there's, I just put on there that Wildcat Park in 2012 and 13 did the 500 and 250 for the bricks. But I also put on there 150 and 300 if that was something that was more agreeable to you. As another option. I mean, I guess that's,
Mrs. Tressi?
I think when you look at the comparison with Wildcat, I would assume, and I'm just assuming this, that that's for communities that go to Mayfield schools, Gates Mills, Highland Heights, Mayfield Village, and Mayfield Heights. So that's a bigger scope. Maybe demographics, financial demographics are different in Highland Heights, Gates Mills, and Mayfield Village. I think $500 in Mayfield Heights might be a little bit more prohibitive for, our residents. Though they want to have something, for memoriam, I just thought the $500 was a little steep.
How about the 150, 300, is that more in line with?
Yeah, I think that's much more in line. And I think if you looked at some of the other areas where these bricks are also, placed, I think that's more of an average. But I think there's a difference between Wildcat and 4 communities and just Mayfield Heights. Because maybe someone in Mayfield Village has no one to remember in Mayfield Heights, so they might not want to spend $500 here. I mean, that's just my thought. It is what it is, I guess. I don't know how
Mr.
everyone else
Balistreo.
feels.
I would agree with Mrs. Teresi. John, I'd be more amenable to reducing that price. And for same reasons we talked about last time. I think more of our people would have an opportunity to memorialize somebody.
Okay. Mr. Monaco, do you have anything to say?
I'm good.
You're good? Okay. All right. Thank you both for the explanation. We'll move to roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Resolution 2023-41 has been approved. Resolution number 2023-42, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2023-42, a resolution authorizing change order number 2 with A&J Contractors, Inc. for the 2022 Road Program D, Mayfield and Ridgeberry, and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Monaco, second by Mr. Balestrea. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestrea,
Second.
second by Mr. DeJohn. This was a change order for an additional $30,000 to repair the road in front of Hillcrest Hospital at the main entrance. All members of council should have received the information and the emergent repair of that area. Are there any further questions from council? Okay, roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, this motion has been approved. We will now move to Resolution 2023-43. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2023-43, a resolution awarding a contract to Perk Company, Inc. for the 2023 road resurfacing program, including the alternate bid in accordance with the bid specifications, and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Second.
Moved by Mr. Balestrea, second by Mr. DeJohn. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Monaco, second by Mr. DeJohn. The bids for the 2023 road project have come in, and there were 5 bids, with the lowest and the best bid going to Perk Company in the amount of $3,809,901. Is there any comments or questions from council? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. This resolution has been adopted. We'll now move to resolution number 2023-44. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2023-44, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Valley Truck Centers for the purchase of a Ford F-250 4x4 regular cab pickup truck for use by the Mayfield Heights Service Department and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mrs. Teresi
Second.
and second by Mr. Balestrea. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Belstrea,
Second.
second by Mr. DeJong. This is a proposal from the Service Department to replace a dump truck with a new 20 Ford F-250 4x4. This is part of the Ohio Cooperative Purchasing Program. If awarded the proposal, the truck will be bought from Valley Truck Centers in the amount not to exceed $70,000. Thank you, Mr. Brunello, for the letter and the information before the meeting. Mrs. Tressi.
I have a question, probably Mr. Bonello or the mayor can answer. We have that truck that we purchased that we really don't use that does catch basins. Are we ever going to use it? I know we talked about the county doing all the catch basins for free. Should we sell that truck? I mean, I know we bought it for a reason, but it's just sitting there unused.
Correct. It is. Good evening, all. Yeah, so that's the thought process moving forward is we're going to sell the truck. We've actually been approached by the company we purchased it from, Jack Doheny, to purchase it back. They sell a bunch of different equipment now that we can probably utilize a little bit better. They sell like lift trucks and things like that, some things that we really do need and are of the age. So we're probably going to look to do that next season. Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Sure.
How long have we had that truck?
The vac truck?
Yeah.
2017 maybe. I don't know. I don't know offhand.
Wasn't Mr. Fernaro here at the time?
Joe purchased the
Joe
truck.
wanted us to purchase that truck.
It's only 4 years, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, and we purchased it used as well. So, yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Belstrea.
Chuck, what's the delivery time on this one?
Hopefully this will deliver. So we still haven't received our truck from last year
And
yet.
that's why I'm asking.
And I know Ms. Vega could attest that I've reached out to them probably a dozen times. It seems like more than that the past couple of months to say, hey, where's our 2022 dump truck at? That still is not in production for some reason. This truck will be here hopefully a little bit sooner. These Ford pickup trucks are rolling through the line faster than the dump trucks are. So I'm hoping, if approved tonight, we'll get them a PO no later than mid-summer, early fall. Hopefully.
You still don't have a time on the other one, the
No,
22?
no, I don't think they responded to me either, to be honest. And I sent them one, I think, last Thursday. They were re-asking again for the purchase order. Karen resent it, and then I did a follow-up in addition to that, saying, hey, you have it, so what's the deal? I have not heard back.
Okay.
So I keep pushing because the other truck's on Gov Deals.
Is that the same company? Valley?
Yeah.
And this was part of the Service Department's budget amount.
Correct. This truck was in the budget for 2023 and definitely discussed during the budget process.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi.
Yes.
Mr. DeJong.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. This resolution has been adopted. We will move to Resolution 2023-45. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2023-45, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an amendment to the agreement with Glaus, Pyle, Schomer, Burns, and DeHaven, Inc., DBA GPD Group, to provide professional engineering services in connection with the installation of the new generator and automatic transfer switch replacement at City Hall and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestrea, second by Mr. DeJong. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJong.
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Tressi, second by Mr. Balestrea. GPD has prepared a letter to provide additional services for the installation of a new generator at City Hall in the amount of $28,900. Buckeye Power Sales suggests that we use an engineer to properly draw the plans and specifications for the installation of this new generator. Does any member of council have any questions? No? Mrs. Tressi?
Did we need to get bids for this instead of just giving it to GPD?
Mrs. Fagan?
Bids would not be required if it wasn't over 50,000.
Mr. Murphy?
And it's professional services, so bids aren't required anyway. And GPD is the city engineer, so it's logical to ask them to do this design work as part of the city engineer contract. But council has indicated any increase in the scope to the GPD contract has to come before council, so that's why this is here.
So who will actually do the work? The Buckeye? Like who we bought?
Who will install?
Yes, who will install it?
So Buckeye provided the generator to us. I'll make this brief. So in lieu of trying to get an electrical contractor to come out to install the new generator when it arrives, I did consult with the building department as well, and Tim Tezar came out, and we met, and each electrical contractor provided me with a different scope of work. Well, long story short is, in order to get more of a comparable for all of the electrical contractors, they thought it would be best if a electrical engineer was to write the specs to provide the contractor. So everyone's getting the exact same spec sheet, and they can bid the installation of this out properly versus hodgepodging different quotes. So I thought it was in the best interest to do that for the city, just to get one, set of plans, send it out to bid. Each contractor can look at it, decide whether or not they want to bid the job and go from there. So, but it's one clean slate of work, though. Here's the work, give us a cost to to install the generator.
So we don't have anybody to install it
We do
yet?
not yet, not until this proposal goes out to the contractors.
And we wouldn't know, but you kind of have an idea of how much we're looking at installing this?
Installation is probably going to be between 40 and 50,000. It's not going to be cheap.
Wow.
At all. And that's the norm. There's a couple other surrounding municipalities putting these generators in, and installation I don't want to tell you the first number I got because I almost passed out. That's how high it was. It was 3 digits.
Wow.
So that's what stimulated the conversation to get, hey, we need to get a more concrete plan to get this installed. Due to the increase of size, there was a lot of different factors, so it made the most sense to do this in a clean fashion.
Mrs. Tressi?
I'm sorry.
No problem.
Chuck, I'm a little confused.
Sure.
This letter to
Can
the
you
mayor.
speak into your microphone a little bit more?
I'm sorry. The letter says, with the purchase of the new generator, I've begun the process of gathering quotes and bids for installation. So GPD's work is just design,
That is correct, yes.
just design, and then we're going to pay another 40 to 50,000 to install it.
That's correct. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure that
Believe me when I tell you, the process has been, it's been quite a process. Learned a lot about electric and a lot about generators over the past few months. And again, due to the increased size, I don't think anyone realized the current generator we have back there that's failing didn't provide power to this entire complex when the power went out. So we had different things not functioning so again, that's why we increased the size of the generator, causing all these other additional things to now surface with installation and design work because we want to power up the entire building, police, fire, and city hall. So this is where all this additional design work came to make sure that it's done properly. And that came in a recommendation from not only this Buckeye, but from our building department as well.
So I just have a quick question. Will the person that we hired to do the install, will they work off of someone else's plans? Like,
They
we're
should
getting
not, they should not, no. They should be working strictly off of the plan drawn by GPD.
GPD, right?
Yeah. I mean, unless they see something, there could be something unforeseen throughout but the bulk of the work should be off of GPD's plan.
All right. Are there any other further questions? Oh, Mrs. Fagan, I'm sorry.
That's okay, not a problem. I just wanted to remind council that the generator was one of the items we discussed to come out of the federal ARPA funds. This is all a cost of buying that generator and having it in place and operating, so all of these costs could come from those federal ARPA funds.
Okay, perfect. Mrs. Dressy?
Mrs. Fagan, do we have any funds left?
Not after this.
We did,
Yeah.
I mean, we did some.
budget-wise, when we went through and came up with budget numbers, we did have funds left over. I don't remember right now what that is, maybe about 100 and, I don't want to give you a number, but I will email that to you. There was a small amount yet, but so many of these projects have not been bid out yet. We know the phone system that council graciously approved last meeting came in under what we thought and budgeted for, so that also frees up some additional monies there. But I can get you a breakdown on that.
And could you get a breakdown as to what we have used it for?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
It was some of the money set aside for the Marcel project.
We, so far on those federal ARPA funds, we did the
Marcel,
one-time,
Bonus.
I'll just get you a whole thing
Okay.
rather than going into it now.
That's perfect.
That was-
Thank you.
That was the initial amount of funds that went to a bonus for everyone.
Yes, for the bonus pay. We are using it for the construction of the dispatch center, not for the equipment, but for the actual construction. So we've been using it to pay Millstone for that. And those are the only major ones those are the only projects that have been bid out that are actually going forward at this point. The other ones are still in process of getting ready to go forward.
And would you send us the total amount
Oh,
of
absolutely.
those
It's all
ARPA
on the
funds?
same spreadsheet, absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Balistreo?
Ms. Fagan, what was the deadline on the use of those funds?
I believe it was the end of '25.
25. Okay, so we got time.
Yes, we do. I will push them greatly if we're getting close to a deadline, believe me. We don't want to lose.
Mr. Monaco?
I'd just like to know, outside of the critical power in the buildings, what other electrical fixtures is this generator going to energize? Is they going to operate the emergency exit lights? Where are we designing this product to do?
So based on what GPD has told me in the preliminary, we had a meeting back there. Like I said, the current one it powers up some areas of the complex. The new one will power up the entire complex when the power is out. So everything will be as normal. You'll never notice the power flicker or anything like that whatsoever. So everything will work. The elevators, you name it, the whole building should be powered.
And we have already examined the existing gas line, and we know that the gas coming in is going to be adequate to supply these monsters that you put out there.
Yes, fortunately, the one that's out there now, the current regulator, was bigger than what we needed for the current generator. So yes, that'll be in place. That won't have to be touched.
We're sure about that.
Yes.
Because I run into this situation many times. So those humongous houses, they install a generator, and then the generator does not have enough power, enough gas to energize the furnace, the stove, and everything else. So
Yeah, when Buckeye came out to size the generator, that was the first thing they looked at, was the size of the gas regulator in the back, and they said it was a good size.
okay,
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay. Are there any further questions?
put some light in something.
Thank you for the light.
Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, this resolution has been adopted. I need a motion to add Resolution 2023-46 to the agenda. Moved by Mr. Balestria. Second. I'll second. By me. Roll call on the motion to add Resolution 2023-46 to the agenda.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Resolution 2023-46, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2023-46, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Magus LLC for the purchase and installation of a pavilion for use at the Mayfield Heights Aquatic and Community Center and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Balestria. And second? I'll second. And moved by me. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestria. Second? I'll second it. Okay, this is a resolution to authorize for the purchase and installation of a pavilion in the amount of $66,264. The pavilion was part of the original plan, but I believe that the pavilion proposed for that area was going to cost too much, and maybe the supplies were not available. And I'll go over that with Mr. Trotta and Mr. Ward. And they felt that this company, Magus, was a better pavilion than Game Time's proposal. So I'll turn this over to Mr. Trotta and Mr. Ward.
So the original, in the Higley contract, we have an allowance for the storage building, which you see down along 271, and a pavilion. The storage building came in at $105,000, and that left $42,000 to be used on a pavilion. Number one, the pavilion cost was $108,000, and number two, there was some difficulty between the people that we thought were going to be able to do the work to put that all together. So in an effort to save money, we went out and got a state bid price. We went out and got a state bid price from Game Time, and then we also got a price from a local distributor who can do the project $29,000 cheaper and can also have the project done. Can probably get started in the next week to 10 days and get the project done before the pool opens. So there are two proposals there, and we're recommending the Magus proposal, which can get done quickly.
Can you show the pictures of the two different proposals?
So right here is the Magus proposal. Unfortunately, one is a architectural drawing and one is a photo. This one has trusses, but it also has a ceiling on it. So any of you that have been over to the pavilion at the city park during home days and you see birds flying in and out, that will not be the case here. It'll be covered with a wood ceiling, and so that'll all be protected from the wildlife, so to speak. So that's the, this is the
Which one is this one?
This one is the, and let me zoom in a little bit so you can see that. This one is the more cost-effective, and we can have this in the next 2 weeks. They can start construction on this in the next 2
What
weeks.
materials are they using for this one?
This is wood and asphalt shingles.
Mrs. Dressy?
We don't have any wood at the aquatic center right now because we wanted that clean, modern look of brick and 3 different colors of brick and then the Quonset hut look. So something like this in wood doesn't even fit in. It's not going to continue the look of that aquatic center. There's nothing there that's wood. It's going to look like a pavilion at the bocce courts or at Oakville Park.
The detail of this pavilion and compared to the one that we initially designed, both were wood timber frame structures. And the stain color of the wood timber frame was to be that walnut color that matched the exterior features of the metal panels, which was walnut color. So it kind of tied that in all together. So they both were constructed out of wood. The difference is the roof structure in my original concept was a corrugated metal that matched the ribbing on the Quonset hut, which I really liked. However, you have different manufacturers and builders providing different components, and Higley went after 20 different builders to try to find someone who would put this together, and they just wouldn't. And then the one builder came together, and that was the very expensive bid of over $100,000 to do it, and that just wasn't reasonable. So this is a different look in the sense that it has shingles versus, the corrugated metal. It could have corrugated metal on this structure, but it would be a price increase to do that if that was an objection. But right now it would be shingles. And no, we do not have shingles on any other structure in this area.
Could you, go ahead, Mike.
Sean, which one is this one? Is this the design, or is this the game time one? Game time. This was the game time with the arched type pavilion. Okay.
Mrs. Dressy?
And so do we have to build this in the next 2 weeks? I mean, there's plenty of work to do. This isn't something we can wait for the material to match the Quonset hut. That material's already arrived. Am I?
The Quonset hut, if it has, I don't know, but if it might be on site. But we're not going to be able to do the Quonset hut material on this structure. We would have to get another metal roof, like a corrugated metal, just another product. It would not be the deep corrugated metal that the Quonset hut has, but it could have a metal roof. Now, I haven't talked with this provider, this vendor here, but I'm sure they can put whatever roofing you want on it. It just would cost more and might take some time to get that material. The challenge on our site is we're trying to close up the fencing, we're trying to get the playground installed. It's challenging to come back and put a pavilion in when it's operational and when you've got fencing up for the security, and it becomes a construction site later in a hole in the fence. And, we're trying to get it done in a good sequence to be done and out of there. That's the logic. But of course, it could be done at a later time, but it would just involve additional dollars to take out fencing and to pour the concrete. Maybe we get the pad in now. I mean, that would be if we could. But it just makes it more difficult to do it later.
I have a question. Would the wood still carry through the project like it was going to be if we had that shed, what you originally had proposed?
Yeah, we would,
Stain it,
recommend the
whatever.
same colors as a walnut, a dark walnut color. That's what we always were intending. This one has a couple little cross braces, which we didn't have in the previous design, which gives it a little bit more rural feel, if that's the right term for it. But maybe there's some options with that. I don't know. I'm not in direct contact with this vendor, but they're pretty accommodating if there's maybe some modifications that we need to do.
Mrs. Tressi.
Mr. Trotter, will you go to that site plan and just kind of point out where this is going? And is that close to Marsall Road, near where the playground is going to be? Don't you, if you erected this, you still have to come through a fence or something at that point to do the mounding and the trees and the fence behind Sunnydale, am I correct?
No, it's open to get through there.
So you would still be able to get back and do all the work you have to do behind the residents' homes, even if this were erected?
Yeah, this is all within the fence boundary, security fencing of the project. But you would have to remove, if you did it at a later time, you'd have to remove this fencing to get to it, to install it.
That fencing is the current cyclone fence that backs up?
It's the new wrought iron fencing, that's the security fencing to protect people from getting into the pool. That's the perimeter that I'm concerned, you've got to remove all of that.
That's not erected yet, though, is it?
It is not.
It is not.
They want to do it now before it gets erected.
So that's the fence. Okay. I was thinking of the fence you're going to put in behind Sunnydale.
Now, could they bring a crane in and lift it over top and do stuff? Well, there's always a way, but it's costs more for them to rent that equipment than to do it. But,
Everything costs more.
Yeah.
We've learned that everything costs more.
just giving you those facts.
Yeah, I was assuming it was the fence that's going to, you still have to put the fence in behind the Sunnydale properties. And I was thinking you were coming in there off Marsall, and how much room do you have between those backyards and
It's pretty tight.
and
With
this,
the trees, yeah, it's,
what
you
you're going to
know,
erect? So
Could-
I wasn't thinking about the wrought iron fence.
Do you think you could entertain that roof, that change, but still go with this? If we were to go with this and everybody's in agreement, to have that more appealing look?
we would have to go through the manufacturer to make sure they can do it. But it was just priced as shingles, but I would love if it was a metal roof, on it, but it's, it's the price tag for that.
You can.
You can.
I mean,
You
thought you
approve
said- I
this
thought you were
now.
asking
Well,
me.
we could get-
Okay,
Come back with the
Mayor.
price.
We could get a cost from this provider and see how much more it would be for a metal roof. That way, council could say, okay, and have a change order if they wanted to change it to the metal roof, or they may, because of cost, you may say, oh, leave it as shingles, but we can get that.
So I have a question for Mrs. Fagan. So we have received monies that Sean spoke about tonight, for putting up, installing the playground and different funds that he's received. Would that free up anything in the, how we have that whole project area where there's money still there to do things with, I guess? Is it still
Where
there?
that money is still
It might
there.
not be there.
We're kind of talking two different things. We have the overall budget, and we have a contingency with
The
Higley.
contingency.
And that's all taken care of, and that's all been, there's a PO out there on that. That would be coming out of this. What the money's coming in from Sean, and the other $700,000 that he didn't even mention that's coming from the park fund. So we have those monies coming over also. But those monies are doing is defraying the cost of the debt when it's all done.
Yeah. Mr. Balestria.
Can we just approve this evening, so they can at least get it in and get a price on a metallic roof and just do a change order if necessary?
That's what he was, Mr. Murphy was saying that.
Right.
Yes,
Yes.
Why don't we do that? Why don't we do that?
yeah. Just so, Mrs. Tressi.
I was just going to ask, in the memo, it says that the funds are going to be covered under FF&E budget. So are there additional funds in the FF&E budget where you could take this money from, the additional monies?
There are, but we still have a number of things left to do, but we feel confident that there's enough money there in FF&E to do this.
What else has to come out of that FF&E that's not?
Signage, Zamboni, the floor cleaning equipment, there's multiple signage. There's exterior building signage, there's ground signage. We tried to use that digital sign. We kept that from the community center. We just found out last week that that no longer works.
Mr. Ward, can you speak into the microphone?
There's multiple levels of signage. That's part of FF&E. There's exterior building signage, there's interior building signage, there's the digital sign that we were not able to keep. It is not working, so it's going to cost a lot of money to get that repaired. It just makes sense to get a new sign. But we do feel that there's money there to make this all work.
Thank you.
Mr. Monaco?
Thank you. I'm not a fan of the shingle roof. But the real question here is the problem the additional cost, or is the problem that we can't get the material, or both? Because I see metal roof installed every day, and they can get material. So I don't know, what is the issue here?
The issue was to, come up with an economic structure and put it out there to get some pricing and see what alternates we have to replace my original concept. This was one of a couple ideas. This was the most economic, but I agree with you that a metal roof would make it look much better and tie it in to the rest of the facility with a sort of a galvanized aluminum-looking roof that matches the Quonset hut in colorations, and I would recommend doing that if we can.
Who reached out and spoke to Magus, this company? The mayor? Oh, you did. And you probably never even discussed a metal roof because you didn't think to.
No, yeah, not yet.
Right. So
I will now.
I think now that we kind
We'll
of
get the
got,
difference in cost.
your professional opinion, Mr. Trotta, means a lot because this is your project. And I think you can see that better on this, building. And I think maybe we should consider that.
I'd welcome to participate in some conversations with that vendor to
I would.
talk about what other options we have.
Okay.
Madam Chair? if I could.
Mayor? Mhm.
Yeah, he is just worried about, and I would imagine any of the, even the other supplier is worried about getting this in on their timeline, the timeline of the construction going on there right now. So that was the most important thing of, bringing it to council now and getting it in that timeline. He just wants to know, if we said, okay, we're going with you, but we need a price on changing the roof, that wouldn't be a problem at all. Because he needs to know that, hey, we're going to move forward so he can get all the material and then, worry about the roof. But that could come, a little bit later.
Madam Chair.
And then, I'm sorry, go ahead. Mrs. Tressi.
I apologize, but I truly can't see the size of this, the roof or the whole pavilion. Would you just give me the?
It's like, I believe from memory, it's around
26 by 54.
It's 1,000 square feet.
26 by 54.
A little bit more than 1,000 square feet.
I have a question, though.
Yeah, I know.
In the
Basically
resolution,
can't
wait,
see.
where's it at?
It's on par with our current pavilion's size.
Oh, wow.
So I have another question. In the resolution, it states it's $66,264, but on the quote, it says it's $68,764.
That was my next question.
They gave us a secondary price.
From Magus?
One is the secondary.
Yeah, I don't have the secondary.
It's the one in the, isn't that the one in the resolution?
No, the,
The one in the resolution is 66,000.
Right, because it was slightly changed.
so the original quote was dated April 25th of 2023 at $68,764. But now there's an attached proposal dated May 1st of 2023. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. I didn't have it in front of me, so thank you. All right, any further questions or comments? Okay. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
No.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. This, I'm sorry.
No, that's
Mrs.
okay. I was
Tressi.
just going to ask if you were going to go back and,
Yes, that's-
oh, you just asked him that. Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead, finish
So,
asking.
Go ahead, no, go ahead.
No, just are we going to go back and see if they can do the metal roof, and then we'll do a
I will
change
have
order?
him, I'll have him quote it with the, see what the difference is between the two roofs.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
And Mr. Murphy?
I just want to note that 4 affirmative votes, it's not an emergency, so it doesn't take effect immediately. You have to wait 30 days.
We don't have 5 votes.
Right.
You won't have enough people here then? You won't, because I won't, that's why I'm not in the meeting next week.
You vote on the roof then. Yeah.
Put it back on the agenda in 2 weeks.
No one could make it. So it's a 4 to,
They can proceed, the contractor can proceed, it's just at their own risk in case something happens.
so Mrs. Tressi, he did state, the mayor stated that he will try and contact the gentleman from this company this evening or even tomorrow to look into what we talked about this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Hold on. Now I need I need a motion to remove, what was that number?
26.
202326.
2023-26 from the table.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Tressi, second by Mr. Balestrea. Roll call on the motion to remove this from the table.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Mr. Murphy, 2023-26.
Yeah, it's on second reading. Okay. Resolution number 2023-26, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to Thomas and Lisa George, 1394 Washington Boulevard, a variance to construct a greenhouse on the property, Cuyahoga County Permanent Parcel Number 861-13-028, larger in area than that allowed by the codified ordinances. And that's second reading.
Thank you. Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Balestrea, second by Mr. Monaco. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Tressi, second by Mr. Monaco. We all heard from the law director this evening. Does any member have any further questions or comments? Okay, roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Balestrea.
No.
Mrs. Teresi.
No.
Mr. Monaco.
Nope.
Mr. DeJohn.
No.
Mrs. Snyder.
No. So this variance request has been defeated. We will now move to ordinances, beginning with ordinance number 2023-13. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ordinance number 2023-13, an ordinance amending Chapter 175 of the codified ordinances of the city titled Keep Mayfield Heights Beautiful Commission to add review of shade trees to its duties. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Balestrea, second by Mrs. Tressi. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Tressi, second by Mr. Balestrea. All members should have received the ordinance adding verbiage to the program guidelines of Keep Mayfield Heights Beautiful Commission. The committee met, and we would like to enhance areas throughout the city, as well as promote public awareness of the importance of shade trees to the city and to plan and implement an annual Arbor Day celebration. The committee consists of Sean Ward, Mike Medic, Jeremy King, Karen Arnold, and myself. Sections of the ordinance that have changed are in A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I, and J of the ordinance. This pretty much sums up by saying it's planting, placing, and the preservation of trees and shrubs on the city streets and on public property owned by the city. Mr. Ward, do you have anything further to add to this? Okay. Any questions from council? Mayor?
This is needed for Tree City USA too. They want you to have a committee that deals with the trees and keeping the city beautiful. So that's one of their requirements.
Mrs. Tre,
Mr. Balestray, go ahead.
Mr. Valstria.
Thank you. I know I'm getting old, but I don't recall ever setting this up, this commission through council.
We're not council.
Mr. Joe Finaro brought the beautification program to the city
Was
in
this-
this Tree City USA. I
When-
don't know what year it was.
Was this a while back?
2017.
Yeah.
Okay.
You'll see signs all over this, like a few parts of the city, the beautification tree signs. That's what this is part, and then like those, the waste paper,
Okay.
right, the
But
waste.
I do have a question with section C, though. I think you're removing the authority of the planning commission for approval and giving it to this committee, if I'm reading that right. It says, once established, such guidelines shall govern the planting of the trees. The planning commission shall refer the part of the improvement plan pertaining to the street trees of any subdivision to the commission for its approval. You see where it says that?
Yeah, under C.
Yeah, I don't think that should be removed from the planning commission as having the final say. I mean, this is just a committee. The planning commission should have the final say on any type of landscape design. So I would rather have you say that improvement plan pertaining to street trees of any subdivision to the commission for its recommendation, possibility, and the piece, the planning commission should have the final say. That would be my recommendation. You know, planning commission's around for, you have members that are seated for a while. They're appointed members, and this committee can change at any given time with appointees. So I still think the planning commission should have the final authority, should be the final authoritative power.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to amend.
Second.
I need a vote from, a roll call on the motion
Motion to amend.
to amend with Mr. Balestreya's recommendation,
Mrs.
utilizing the
Teresi.
word.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. So we will now add the word recommended to council. Is a-
Recommended instead of approval.
And then
Okay.
planning commission will should
Under
have
the
the
C.
final determination. You'll make those changes, right?
So this says the developer.
Mrs. Tressi, did you have a question too?
So in C, it also says, as an alternative, the developer may request the commission to develop the street tree plan. Yeah, who's the developer? I mean, this should have, yeah.
I'll make a motion to delete that.
I'll second the motion.
Okay,
And it also says, and to be paid by the developer, which is okay, if a developer wants to pay for this, but chances are that's,
The developer is being deleted.
Yeah,
That's
all
the
of it.
motion. So
Right.
there won't be any payment. That'll all be
deleted.
cleared up.
Okay.
Mr. Murphy, after we vote, and you'll just send us a new copy this week of the.
Yep.
Okay. And Mrs. Tressi?
so Mayor, was this part of Mayor Costabli's Mayfield Heights beautiful, and we got a grant years ago for some of the trees that are planted on tree lawns on Mayfield Road. There was a beautification grant, I believe.
I don't believe that the Keep Mayfield Heights Beautiful Committee, I'm not sure, to tell you the truth, if it was established then.
I think we got a
Or-
grant at one point to plant some of those trees, like, I think some of them are near Staples and going that way, because I know I had suggested it because
before my
it was
time.
so much concrete. And to plant trees, it kind of gave us this, the Mayfield Road, the same appearance as coming through Lyndhurst, which has many trees on its tree lawn, and it's green coming through South Euclid, Lyndhurst, and then you got to Mayfield and it looked like concrete. And I believe there was a grant that was when Mayor Costabile was in office
Okay.
that we received.
Mrs. Fagan's trying to look that up. But Mr. Murphy,
I've got the answer.
he's got the answer.
This was, well,
All right.
that was before my time, Mayor Costabile. I have no idea, but this particular commission was set up in 2017 at the prodding of Service Director Fernaro to make Mayfield Heights a Tree City, USA.
I remember
And this
that.
is what had to be done. So this is what this is built upon. I don't know what Mayor Costabile did back when, that was before my time.
Not before my time. And can you tell us who the committee is again?
Well, we met with Mr. Ward, Mr. Medic, Mr. King.
King?
Jeremy King. Karen Arnold, she's the representative to Euclid Creek, and myself. Mayor, were you at one of the meetings? I don't know if you were there.
No, I don't think I was at one.
Yeah. We've only had one. Only been one.
One meeting?
Yeah.
Oh, one meeting, and you put this whole ordinance together.
I didn't put anything together.
Okay.
Yes.
Not at all.
Need a vote on the second amendment regarding the
Mr.
deleting the reference to the developer.
Yeah, Mr. DeJohn made a motion, and I second it. So I need a roll call on the motion to delete that second portion.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. So now we have the new resolution with the different changes in it, and Mr. Murphy will send us all a copy. Are there any further questions? Okay, roll call on the motion to approve as amended.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. This resolution has been adopted as amended. Tonight, we don't have any motions, and is there any new business or comments from council? Mr. Monaco.
I'd just like to congratulate my great neighbor, Sarah Truscaro. She just reached another milestone. God bless her. She's 104 years old.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, my gosh.
Just
Happy
wanna
birthday.
Shout out to
Happy
her.
birthday.
God
Wow,
bless her.
that's awesome.
That's it.
Anything further? Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mr. Belstrea
Second.
and second by Mrs. Tressi. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone. We are now adjourned.
And you'll let us know when the next meeting is, correct?
Yeah, I guess.